Welcome to the MBU Football Coaches Show with Coach B. This is Guy Danhoff. We want to welcome you to another Coaches Show as we are joined now with Coach B. Coach, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. How are you, Guy?
I'm doing really good, and we really want to dive right at it. As you know, this past weekend, the Spartans played for the second time in two games already. Olivet, Nazarene, and the Spartans fell a little short, 27-14. However, if you're a Spartan fan, if you've been watching that game, knowing that it was tied 14-14 on the ensuing kickoff to start the third quarter, let's just face it, it looks like the Spartans made some big-time adjustments to the fact you kind of took the crowd and their home crowd out of the game. And I was wondering, Coach, if you could speak to that game, because it was unbelievable to know that when Michael Malone took it to the house 99 yards for the touchdown to start that third quarter, the score was tied. So the question I have, what are your overall, impressions of the game, and especially given the fact that you had them tied to start the third quarter?
Well, I think ultimately it was a game of two emotions, and I think that's how everybody felt. Number one, what a big play that Mike had coming into the second half. When you open up and you're getting the ball, and throughout halftime, we had a really good plan and a couple adjustments that we liked, but felt like we were starting to click a little bit offensively, starting to move the ball a little bit, get some success, and then boom, we fire away with a 99-yard kickoff return. I mean, that's such a momentum boost right there, and got everybody, right in it. Everybody was excited about the play, knew that the second half, now the next 30 minutes was anybody's ball game. So a great way to start the half. I think, the bittersweet portion of it is that at the end of the day, we come out with a loss. And I think we felt like we played extremely hard, played well on both sides of the ball, did some good things on special teams. So to come out of there with a loss was unfortunate, but the thing that we really talked to the guys about was that we were proud about how hard they fought, how they battled for 60 minutes. And ultimately that's what we consistently talk about. And what we haven't been consistent about enough is playing 60 minutes. I think there's times where we come out and we play those 60 minutes, and other times where we don't. We've got to get that fixed. We've got to be consistent. And something we've talked a lot about this week is a faceless, nameless opponent. I think there's a lot of reasons to go out and battle and have a lot of motivation based on how the first week went, and we all felt like that's not who we were. But then to come out in the second game and do something like that, put not just Olivet, but I think the league on notice about who the Spartans can be when we show up and play. That's got to be who we are, and ultimately, it didn't finish the way we had hoped it would.
So, Coach, what did you do differently for the game plan? I mean, let's just face it, their star wide receiver, who kind of lit the Spartans up in our first game, the home opener, up until Michael Malone got hurt or had to leave the game, he was held without a catch.
Yeah,
I mean, that's significant. And holding down all that scoring, because that's a pretty potent offense. I mean, coming into the game, in two games, that offense had been scoring over 100 points already to start the season. So I was just curious, what did you do to change things up? Because the Spartans looked pretty comfortable a lot of times on defense throughout that game.
Well, a lot of credit goes to Coach Bowden and the defensive staff. I think we sat down in the 2 weeks that we had off. And, the one thing that Coach Bowden and I talked about is that we really have to be who he is. I think as a coordinator, he's an aggressive coordinator. He gets the guys to play aggressive, and we weren't very sharp in that first game. And I think some of it is we were kind of sitting back a little bit more than what our players, what it really fits them. They kind of take on the mindset of what Coach Bowden does, and we're really aggressive, and I kind of told him, like, he's got to go be him, and he's got to go be what our guys can do. and what they do well. So, he did a great job, really adjusted, what we were going to do in the back end with some of the coverage stuff, and was much more aggressive in utilizing our guys' skills. We're not a very big team. We don't have the size that these other teams have that we play against. And the one thing that we feel like we do have is speed. And we've got to be able to utilize that speed. But you can't utilize speed when you're just, gap control and lining up and playing, just kind of straight up downhill football. That's just doesn't fit our athletes. And so he did a great job of devising a game plan where we're moving, bringing, 4 and 5 man pressures at different times, but it looked, it was all over the board. So a lot of credit goes to them. And then, honestly, when you talk about number 14, he's a dynamic player. And, the guy that we keep talking about as a potential All-American candidate is Mike. Mike Malone, not necessarily what he can do on the return game, which was fantastic. He had 2 returns for 180 yards and a 99-yard touchdown. But what he does being on the field as a corner is probably more impactful, and that's one of the challenges and things we've talked about as a staff is, unfortunately, after that 99-yard return, and it was a warmer day, and he started having some cramping issues, and so we had to shut him down. But when he's on the field, he just totally changes our defense. He wipes out an entire side of the field. And you notice the one touchdown that they had after we fumbled on the goal line was going deep to number 14. That was the only catch he had on the day. And again, Mike's not in the game. So, we've got to really be careful how we use him. Obviously, we want to use him as much as possible. But the thing we kind of talked to him about is he's got to make sure his body is ready to play somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 plays a game because he's so valuable to us on the field.
Absolutely. And he played, again, incredible game for the time that he was in. And also I want to kind of, shift a little bit. There were some other standouts, some big time standouts. Actually, let's start with on offense. Jordan Benavides, he had a career game. He had 90 rushing touchdowns. He scored the Spartans' first touchdown on I believe an 18-yard run around left end. How did you feel about his performance?
No, I thought Jordan had a really nice game. It's unfortunate that, it kind of ended the way it did for him, but I thought he had a really nice game. And the thing that I sat down and talked to him about, he came into my office early in the week and was like, he was pretty upset about the fumble. And, the thing that I really talked to him about is, kind of go into scripture a little bit in the sense that, that as Christians, we really just believe that, in God's eyes and God's view, no sin is above one another. It's all sin, right? And so I told him, that the fumble on a goal line is no different than a guy missing his block. It just it's a mistake. It's a mistake that we want to try and get fixed and corrected. But you can't look at it as any different in those situations. We've got to just learn from it and move on. And but for his sake, I hate that happened because nobody cares more than Jordan. He's a guy who's committed. He puts in a ton of work and had a really, really nice game. So, I thought he did really well and will continue to grow as the season goes on.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. I got a chance to see him. Romar Hall's in our building, and again, he's a young man with a great attitude. Just what a great example of a Spartan player that he is. Now let's flip to the defensive side. I keep saying this every week. I will say it on the air. Continued this week again. Jalen Cowley has got to be on an All-American watch again this past weekend. He had 12 tackles, 6 solo. It's almost becoming like a regular routine for him. And Coach, what's your thoughts on him? Because 2 weeks ago, he was the MSFA Midwest Defensive Player of the Week.
I'm biased. I think that he's a guy that, you could potentially award him that almost every week. He is just that type of guy. There's no days off for Jay. JC shows up every single day in practice. And, at times the offensive guys, they get upset because, he's smacking them in a 7-on-7 drill. And, it's not supposed to be a full tackle, but he just shows up and works every day. So he is the epitome of what we look for. We talk about that these guys, it's really hard at any level to just flip the switch and be great on game day. JC is great every single day. Every single day he goes out and gives it everything he has. Practice, game, doesn't matter. And that's why he's great. He has a great understanding of the game. He's a true student of the game. He understands setup. He watches film. So those details that he puts in, the work that he puts in, is why he's just a phenomenal player. But there's no doubt. I mean, he's fun to watch every play. If he's not making the tackle, he's around the ball. I think Coach Bowden made a couple moves and got him in a position where he's a little bit more down in the box around the football. And that's where he wants to be, And what's amazing is, you watch him take on these big offensive linemen, and somehow he's getting off a block and getting in on the tackle. And then, you try to block him with a running back or a tailback, and it's virtually, over. They can't do it. So you put a tight end on him. He's tough and athletic enough to cover them. So he's just a versatile athlete and a guy that is not only just a great young man to be around every day, but a lot of fun to watch too as a coach as well.
Well, I just love the fact he lines up all over the field, and you can play him deep in coverage. You can play him intermediate. You can blitz him. You can keep him on the edge. I'm going to be honest with you. This in my coaching day, back when I used to coach at Western Illinois University, we had a player there named Rodney Harrison, and we all know Rodney went on to play for San Diego and then the Patriots. But when Rodney was at Western, I see some similarities when Rodney was playing as to what Jalen's doing right now for the Spartans.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and a guy that I played against 1 year when he was at USC is Troy Polamalu.
Yeah.
I remember vividly going into that game, and our game plan was basically, find out where he is and then check opposite, and the dude was still making plays.
Right.
I think that's the way Jalen is. Like, you can run away from him, and he's going to still find a way to get in there and make a play. So, he's tough for defenses. When you have Mike out there at a corner and you got a guy like JC in the box and, Colin Thomas and some of these other guys that the Joe Kings that are really coming along, that's what really makes our defense good. They just have to make sure, that they do their job. And I think the one unfortunate thing, but it's good. You mentioned that JC was player of the week 1. We were all kind of down on him and hard on him because he wasn't very disciplined in his eyes. He wasn't very disciplined in how he did things, but he made a lot of plays. This last week, I thought he was extremely disciplined. He did his job. He played with great instincts and had almost equally as outstanding of a game. So, and of course, he didn't win player of the week, but that's ultimately what we expect. When he does that, man, he is just a monster out there.
Well, now you have that going on. And then the last one I really want to talk about as far as Spartan standouts would be your other cornerback, Terrell Powell. Right now, he's second in the conference with 2 interceptions. He's had an interception each game. He's also had a couple of pass breakups. And to have him opposite, Michael Malone, knowing that when Michael's on the field, he's a shutdown corner. And, Terrell Powell's making a pretty good name for himself right now.
Yeah, Terrell, he's doing a really good job as well. I think the thing that he's got to continue to grow, and he's a little bit younger, but he's just got to continue to grow and make the plays every single time. He's got another guy who's got great instincts and a guy who is getting better in his coverage skills. He's got everything you want as a corner. He can run. He's got length. He'll come up and hit you. He'll use his hands. I think the biggest thing is he's just got to trust himself on every snap that he can go and shut down guys with the same confidence that Mike has. Now, to be honest with you, I think that's something that Mike has developed over his time here. And Terrell's, early in his career. He's only a sophomore right now. So he's got a bright future ahead of him. And, those interceptions are at key moments. You look at the one that he had in this past game. Who knows what happens? Olivet's getting ready to maybe score, go up 14-0 after 2 drives, and who knows what happens. But he gets a big interception and turns the tide of the game a little bit and keeps us in it. So he's done a great job, and we'll continue to expect big things from him.
So, Coach, with that, I just want to now spin to one other side of the equation. And, we do our research every week. We have an amazing group that works under Adam Sampson and Tyler Andrews. They do a fantastic job. And one of the interesting stats as I was doing the game prep for the broadcast on Saturday is really Josh Munn's slow start. And I was wondering if you could speak to some of that, because his completion ratio or completion percentage is only at 33%. And and I know that that's just not going to get done. He has not thrown a touchdown yet against 3 interceptions. I was wondering what your thoughts are on Josh as our quarterback.
Well, I mean, that's my position. And, there's no doubt that, I think Josh knows and I know, and it's no secret that he's got to play at a higher level for us to truly get the offense where it's going to go. But I think the thing that I've always said about Josh is that he shows up and works. He's extremely coachable. He's a next play type of guy. He doesn't worry about stats. Me neither, to be honest with you. I think the biggest thing is not that he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass, but I think that the bigger thing that I look at is, we need to put more points on the board offensively. We've had some opportunities to do that, and we started clicking a little bit more in game 2, but, we have a lot of newcomers out there, Josh included. Josh has played in 3 college games, and 4, but 3 as a starter, and that changes things, and we ask him to do a lot. You look at the fact that he's out there punting. He's got a lot on his plate in a newer style offense that, it's not totally new, but there's some nuances that are different for him this spring. And, the thing that I think he is doing very well is managing the offense. He's got, you mentioned the 3 interceptions, but let's see, one of them in the first game was his hand was frozen in -10, when we throw in the fourth quarter. The first play of the game last week, that falls on me. I got to do a better job of preparing him and getting him to understand really what the safety was thinking. I think he maybe got his eyes on his read, and I didn't do a very good job of kind of bringing him through what his progression should be on that play. So that's my fault. And, really the third one, I don't really look at too much. We threw a Hail Mary late in that game, and the whole idea of that was just that the game was over. There were 6 seconds, and we felt it was a really good opportunity for us to practice that rebound type Hail Mary play for, a time when we would actually need it, So, at that point, it was really about getting him and some of the other guys experience on a play. And, you throw those Hail Marys, it's going to show up on the stat sheet. But, overall, I think he just continues to get better. I thought he got better last game over the first game. And that's what we're looking for is that progress. He's got a lot of growing to do. He's got a lot of learning to do yet, but he knows that. And the good thing with him is he's willing to put in the work. He's the first one here, last one to leave. I can be hard on him and, let him know. And it doesn't affect him. His thing is from week to week that he wants to get better. And, anytime you have that, man, you can go to work with that.
Well, I will say this, Coach. He definitely has, again, another player with a fantastic attitude. Just love being around him. And he also had that pretty sweet pass down the sideline. That was old vintage. I thought Isaiah King came back to play for us on that really nice fly route that he had down the sideline.
Yeah, and he throws that ball pretty well, And I think some of the times on – with a newer quarterback, I think more than anything, what he's doing on some of the underneath stuff is he's a little bit he's less confident in his reads right now, especially when there's blitzes and it's moving so fast that he almost gets to where he's aiming the ball instead of just throwing it, rather than just he's almost worried about throwing that interception or making that mistake. And, that's something that just comes through with experience. I think the thing that even Coach Bowden stood up at the end, and I echoed it, but just that, Josh is our QB, and we believe wholeheartedly in him, and I think everybody on this team believes in Josh, and it's because of the work that he puts in and the sacrifices he makes, and with that, it's just a matter of time before things click, and he's willing to work for it.
Well, I can tell this as Spartan fans, if we go back to last year, the work that you did with John Lux, and when you got him finally getting his reads right, next thing you know, we had a really powerful offense and a very powerful passing game once you went through those progressions as you were working with them. And we know in due time, Josh is really going to be positioned well to really kind of have a breakout for him at this point. Because I think what happens is a lot of us forget he's only played 3 games. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. And we're so used to seeing some of our quarterbacks that have been playing multiple years, multiple seasons, and you kind of get used to that. But no, it's a good point that you made to obviously temper expectations accordingly.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, when you're comparing him to John, John came in and he did some good things as well. But the other advantage that John had is he had an all-conference tight end and an all-American wide receiver. True. And a one bounce back.
Right.
So I mean, there was some. When you go back and watch on film, there was some throws that, you're kind of glad John threw because you want quarterbacks to give guys a chance. But there's also plays that Isaiah just made ridiculous plays,
right?
Or that, Anthony caught a 5-yard route and ran 3 guys over and his helmet pops off. He's still chugging along and all of a sudden it's a 20-yard gain,
Right.
And I think guys that are under the radar, like our tight end Easton Locke, man, I'll tell you what, that freshman kid is really opening our eyes about doing some really good things. Cam Sloan only had 1 catch last week, but we used him a little bit in some of that end around game, and he's a guy that has shown that he's got athleticism and can go make those plays. Obviously, Drew Gillig did a great job on that vertical route, And so, and there's some other guys that just continue to come along. But again, when you pair a young quarterback with a young group of receivers, well, there's going to be some times where the stats don't look real pretty.
Right.
And that's double-sided, those guys got to go make plays for him at times, and he's got to give them better balls at times, so it's a combination. And, that's where I'm super excited is the fact that, the future, just what the future looks like. I think the future looks really good. And the great thing is that all of these games, although they count and, we're out to win every one of these games, et cetera, none of them count towards eligibility. So these guys, Josh is getting 7 games of on-the-job training that isn't going to count towards his years. Cam Sloan, he's getting 7 games of OJT, so, essentially it's like a 7-game redshirt year.
Right.
And man, you can't put a price on that. So that's really exciting.
That's a great point, Coach. And I'm glad you shared that for all our Spartan fans, because I think we forget that because, again, COVID and the fact we're playing football in spring is still just bizarre to all of us. I know I've not gotten used to it yet. So with that, let's move forward. Now we're going to be talking about Trinity International. And Coach, actually, before we dive into Trinity, I want to just share something. You've said this through the years, and I can tell you unequivocally, you are correct. Did you know, of course I know you know this, but did you know that right now we have 14 teams in the mid-states, correct? 14?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay, 14. Do you know that 7 of them are ranked and 3 of them are in our division? Were you aware of that?
No, I actually wasn't. I don't pay much attention to the polls. I just know this. I don't need to know what they're ranked or where they're ranked or whatever. I just know this league is brutal. I know this league is tough. And that's not changing. People can say anything about any other league, the Heart of America, you name it. there is no better league top to bottom than the Mid-States. It is every week, and then you look at, I think, what we did last week against Olivet. Of course, Olivet gets into the top 25.
Right.
That's a really good football team that is going to vie for potentially winning our league,
Right.
and we know they were picked second, but, I think they've got the potential to go out and win our league this year. And we had them, I think we had them. There's maybe arrogance or whatever, but I truly believe that if we pop that ball in the end zone with 6.5, 7 minutes to go, that we've got a really good shot of coming away, knocking them off. So, any team can play with anybody. You look at, Trinity and what they did last week against St. X. So it's a tough league. It's a big boys league. The physicality on the field last week was one of the more physical football games I've seen in a long time. Both sides, and that's the way it should be. That's the way it is in the Mid-States.
I think if you were a fan, it was very enjoyable to watch. Even Spartan fans, it was so exciting. Like, could not believe we were playing the same team for the second time, and you would never know what had happened, 2 weeks earlier. You never could have known that. Well, and that speaks to what you're saying about the league.
Yeah, and here's the reality. I got to give credit to my former coach, Gary Barnett. When he took over for us from Coach Neuheisel, one of the things that he wanted to instill in us was toughness. And we did like we called it an RTD drill. We call it right now Spartan tackle or Spartan toughness drill, and it's just a one-on-one like angle tackle drill. That's all it is. But it's a man's drill. Like, you got to jump in there, and it's mano-a-mano, full speed, and we mix that in with a Oklahoma drill, a 3-on-3, or really a 4-on-4 Oklahoma drill. And we do that every week because one of our points of emphasis is toughness.
Right.
We've got to have that if we're going to survive in this league. And the thing that I was really excited about with the Olivet game is I really felt like we were the tougher team on the field on Saturday. I think both teams were bringing it, but there was a period of time where their guys we were letting them know that they played us, and we didn't do that in the first week.
The other thing that really worked well was the penalties. They were very heavily penalized, and we're talking penalties. I'm talking of the 15-yard nature. Yeah. That was kind of nice to see for a change. Seeing that swing.
Yeah, I think we had a few undisciplined, untimely penalties ourselves that hurt us, but I think honestly that was they were frustrated. I think there's no way around it. And I think if we had Coach Heyman on here, he would say the same thing, that they fully expected to come out and roll over us. And it's always tough to play two teams twice. It's always tough. And, when we were smacking them, like I said, we were physical, we were going at them. And, that was, it was showing, it was showing in how there were guys that were coming up off the ground really slow throughout the game. They were getting those penalties out of frustration. And that's one of the reasons why I think that if we had actually taken the lead and scored there was 6 or so minutes to go, that I think the wheels would have fallen off. I think they would have really come unraveled, because they would have been so stunned that they were sitting here behind in the football game.
Right. Just had a blackout. Never had that happen before. Blackout in my own office. Most sorry about that, Coach. That was the weirdest thing. Had a blackout. No, I totally agree with you. You definitely would have been a gut check time for them. And I just, like you said before, to think that you were 1 yard away, or even perhaps that fumble recovery in that scrum, it could have been, changing in so many ways. But with that, let's move forward to Trinity International. This is a team, Coach, you've played 3 previous times. The Spartans have won all 3 of them. But Trinity this year, even though they're coming off of 12 consecutive losses, last week they made a massive statement as they basically narrowly, very narrow margin, fell to the number 14 ranked St. Xavier team that, again, won the league last year, certainly a preseason favorite this year. and they lost 37-28. But what's pretty impressive, they put up 28 points, and pretty much all of it came through the air, as their quarterback, Nolan Bramer, had quite a game. And now that you've seen them on film, what are your thoughts?
Well, this is not a typical Trinity team. I'll say that. Like I think, there's times where they've had some tough times. Maybe, you turn on the film and you do kind of wonder. Same thing that we run into on our end is like, are the guys coming to play every week? But the thing that I see, these guys have played Marion and St. X as their first two games. I mean, the two biggest dogs, in the conference possibly. And, although the scoreboard didn't look very good on the Marion game,
right?
Early in that football game, they were going toe to toe, and Marion was really struggling to do some things and move the ball, and they were giving them all they wanted. St. X, same thing. You look at the end of the first quarter, it's 3-0 St. X,
right? And
I was watching some of it, on live stream, and then obviously going back and watching it. I want to say Trinity had an opportunity in the first quarter to kick a field goal and tie it. They opted to go for it. They were deep in their zone, didn't get the fourth down, and then St. X went on and put some touchdowns together. I think they went on like a 27-0 run.
Mm-hmm.
There were up 30-0, but then, like you said, they fought back. Mm-hmm. They are a tough-minded group, and I think playing these two games has made them tougher, So this is a game where something we've talked to our guys about a lot is, to develop consistency and be great. The thing I've mentioned to them a lot this week is, a faceless and nameless opponent. It does not matter who we play. In fact, I've really not mentioned Trinity this week at all. But what we have mentioned is a week ago, like I said, you have great motivation mm-hmm. to go out and prove yourself being different. What's your motivation this week? And then next week you go on and play St. X, who's won some titles in a row. So there can't be a dip. Like, great teams, great athletes prepare the same way every week. We talked about that with Jalen. And so that's something that we're really emphasizing a lot this week, and just showing up and being about the process, focusing on the details. The details ultimately lost us the game on Saturday, even though right. we did a lot of good things. It was the details that prevented us once again from winning. So we've got to emphasize that. We've got to get better every day. We got to show up and work every day to get better. And that's our mindset.
Well, Coach, I'm just going to say this from, again, looking at the trending of that game. The Trojans of Trinity, they scored 21 points in the third quarter. So they can get it done. I think it's going to be a great matchup. I mean, from my perspective, from the media side, I love the fact that we're going strength against strength. They've got a very powerful offense when it comes to the pass game. That's what they've shown so far. Now, a lot of that's probably because they've been behind. They've had to. But the truth of the matter is, I mean, they're putting up numbers and they're moving the ball and they're scoring touchdowns. And the other interesting part for us is, historically, in the last few years, our pass defense has been among the best in the NAIA. And of course, with three people that we have in our just in our secondary alone, we've already talked about Malone being a shutdown corner. We talked about Cowley, who's had double digits tackles in each game, and Powell, the emergence of Powell getting a pick a game so far. And of course, the linebackers are flying around, and it's just really exciting to see this game coming. I'm excited because it seems to me the Spartans do a little better against teams that pass more, and this should be a fantastic matchup to be played this Saturday night.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a good matchup. There's no doubt. We've got to make sure that we do a really good job in the defensive line, getting pressure on the quarterback and being disciplined in our pass lanes, because I think that's where they can hurt you.
Right.
Their quarterback is a really nice player.
Mm-hmm.
Not only can he throw the ball and throw the ball downfield, can complete the ball at a high level, but he's also a really good runner. So if you get too crazy in your pass rush and you're
right.
not disciplined in your pass rush lanes, he can rip off a 15-20 yard gain. All of a sudden they're moving the sticks and first down. So that puts a lot of pressure. You've got to do it. You got to be really disciplined. Once again, it's something we talk about a lot, and discipline in your assignment, discipline with your eyes. And ultimately, these guys can go make plays. They actually outgained St. X last week, in total yards. They outgained them in pass yards. So this is a good football team. They're coming in hungry. I think if I'm sitting there and I'm Coach Butler, I'm saying, like, guys, look, this is a very winnable game. And I think that every year they're probably looking at that as, hey, maybe this is their one game that they can win or that they feel confident about, per se. I think, again, their mindset is very different this year, and that's a credit to Coach Butler and what they're doing up there.
Well, like a lot of programs, like even like ours, they just keep growing and evolving. And I would agree with you. They're going to come in and look, there's nothing to lose. Both our teams are 0-2, and we played some ranked teams already, so we have that under our belts. And the best part, my last question for you, coach, is I got to ask this. Again, it just seems like a dream come true. Here it is. Not only are we playing a home game, but we are under the lights. I don't know about you, but there's something about when you play under the lights that's just so special. And what are your thoughts about playing under the lights for the first time at Spartan Field?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. The lights is going to be a cool thing. But playing a first home game in positive temperatures is going to be a lot more exciting. So, that first game was tough. Definitely a tough way to open up Spartan Field. But no, I mean, I think this will be a really special opportunity. Like you said, there's something special about being under the lights. The interesting thing is, with the days getting longer, of how the field is, and we're out there practicing at from about 4 to 6. So It's interesting to see what the sun is and what everything looks like at 5 o'clock. The lights aren't going to take effect until about 5:45. Right. Which will be well into the second quarter. So, it'll be a really fun experience. But, ultimately, I'm just something I tell the guys all the time, right? Like, we can get excited about playing at home. We can get excited about playing under the lights. We can get excited about a whole lot of things, but none of that really matters if you walk off the field and you don't feel good about the performance you put in. And that doesn't necessarily mean win or lose. Like, the thing that we talked about last week before the game was go follow the process, trust the process that we've talked about, play one play at a time as hard as you can. And then at the end, let's look up at the scoreboard and see where we were, and even though we looked up at the end and it wasn't in our favor, we felt good about how we played. And that's ultimately what we have to do. I put a tweet out and I told the guys on Monday, the tweet I put out was more directed to them than anything. But, I think ultimately, the process does not always reward you in the way that you want it to. Right. But if you cheat the process, you're never going to get rewarded. Right. And that's just a fact of life that I'm trying to get these guys to understand, like the hard work, the dedication, the commitment that it takes to be successful, whether it's in a job, whether it's as a coach, as a player, is no different. But if you cheat that, you're never going to get rewarded. You'll never get that promotion. You'll never get to where you ultimately want to be. And that's what we have to understand. If we continue to trust the process, good things are going to come of it. Absolutely. And Coach, I just want to say thanks for taking the time. I know we had a lot to unpack today. There was a lot of, like I said, to your point, there was a lot of really good things to report on this week because the team certainly did a 180 from that opening time we played Olivet. So congratulations to you and your staff. Obviously, I know the ultimate result wasn't what you're looking for, but still to be in that game the entire way was just so exciting to see the Spartans fight back, and especially on the road. I thought to myself, if the Spartans pulled this off, that would have been perhaps the biggest win in school history for our football program, knocking off a ranked team on the road after what had happened, to open the season. So anyways, those 2 weeks are now gone. We got Trinity International, kickoffs at 5 o'clock. And just want to say thanks again, Coach, for taking the time. And you've been watching the Coaches Show with Coach B. I am Guy Danhoff right here on the Spartan Digital Network.